Hi, folks. Nick Tuckert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get going, I want to talk about my main sponsors, that being that the Simple Sword and the Fighting Axe, both by yours truly, available through Amazon, where you can learn how to sword fight with the techniques I discuss here and demonstrate in my assorted videos. I'm also made possible by the amazing folks who are my Patreon supporters at www.patreon.com/the Historical Fencing Guild. Look for the big white boot. Alrighty, folks. This is going to be a little bit hodgepodgey of a day. I've had some stuff that hit in the background, and literally mere moments before the broadcast, my son was barked at by a dog he didn't see, and I had to deal with that. Everybody's fine, everything's well, but we're coming in a little hot and bothered. All right, before we get rolling with whatever's coming to my mind, let's take a second to see what you fine folks are saying. First in the door at 7:35 is our dear friend Foxy. Woo! Yeah, Foxy beat Thesis, and Foxy doesn't usually do that. So welcome aboard, Foxy. I explained to her that, of course, still getting some stuff settled, and I'd be fine. Back for more fun with our amazing darling Syndicate. Folks, in the chat, you will find www.coepp.com. So that is her website. Follow her. And while we're talking about people that desperately need to be followed, please go to www.risingtide.pub for our dear friend Brian K. Morris, who won't likely be able to join us tonight because he's sleeping for a convention. But we've got a lot of good stuff coming down the pipes. We got No Worries. We've got Evening Sword Family. Good evening, Thesis. I hope you and yours are having a good time. And of course, the two links I just mentioned. Folks, this has been a really, really weird week for me. I had some medical stuff. The Patreon folks know it's not really air stuff. I'm just adapting to some new medication. And I'm about halfway through getting another this is us stair-stepping you up to see how things work. We will be talking about a few things, and I realized I left the fancy new PVC cutters out along with the PVC, so I guess I'm not building a ball for live right now. That's okay. Still a little out of it. I have my other comms open on the off chance that I am joined by I have a few people who like to message me direct. I also will be posting pretty soon links. I don't have them. They're all through my phone right now. My dear friend Joe Bachman has been setting up some amazing little apps to help with the games I run, namely Big Stumpy Robots, and a couple other things are coming down the pipe. Hey, Devil Flyer, it's been a while since I've seen you. Glad you can make it. All right, folks. Let's talk about some things. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is probably the silliest thing. Well, no. That will be the second thing I need to talk about. I got to talk about something because today is April 1st. And I know some people are wondering what kind of zany stuff. Devil Flyer, it's going pretty good. We're coming together. We're going to plot and have a good evening. What kind of pranks? I don't pull pranks on April Fool's Day. I simply don't do it. I rarely pull pranks ever because I'm not a big fan of receiving them, and I've grown up around people with PTSD, and I know too many people who sudden things can really be problematic. So I just wanted to let you guys know it's okay if that level of shenanigan isn't quite your jam. It doesn't need to be, and you don't need to put up with it. Now, I do want to talk about two things real quick. The slap, I want to get in because everybody's talking about it, and it is, I guess, combative. Because I had some people actually contact me thinking, did I think it was real? And a few other things like, why didn't he block? The reason I'm talking about the slap that happened, I'm sure everyone here knows, the whole Will Smith, Chris Rock basically insulted Will Smith's wife for something she couldn't change. Will Smith, from whatever his mentality, got up, smacked the snot out of him, and sat back down, telling him to keep his wife's name out of his mouth. Now, I do not condone violence, but I do understand it. I do understand the mentality of someone pushed too far. So I think that needs to be understood when we look at this. That being said, and was stepping beyond that, that's a slightly different conversation. I did get asked, was it real? And I do believe it was a real strike. The way that the body language, the follow through. And the other thing, and this is where it bodes to what we do and why this is important. Why did he let it connect? Why didn't he do anything to defend himself? There were two major factors that were going for that Chris Rock did not believe there was a present threat. And there are two, and we need to understand these because they affect how in tourney and in melee and in other things we engage with potential opponents. A lot of it is reading body language. Everybody said he was smiling, he was laughing when he got up, and he was indeed smiling and laughing. But everything about his body language was very driven, very. The smile stopped at his face to anybody who watched body language, because I saw the clip that I didn't know what happened. They're like, something happened at the Oscars, and they showed it. Like, oh my God, I actually thought I was going to kill him. I thought he was going to get up and shoot him with something, because the body language was that of somebody, I'm smiling and I'm being nice to close distance. It was a deception. And that's the first aspect of what we need to understand when we see something like this and start to apply it as martial artists, as people who sword fight. Always keep in mind your actual range. There are huge amounts of techniques that are out there to distract. A lot of the motions in capoeira, a lot of the very dynamic fighting motions are designed to confuse the onlooker, both the fighter and anyone around him, as to how far apart you are from your opponent. And many times it's stuff that's designed to make your target feel safe. You know, it's either I want them intimidated so they can't attack me, or they don't know where I am, so I can get into an advantageous position, or so that they don't realize I'm already there. Oh, God. That was me. What was it? Was it yesterday? Yeah, kind of gnarly. It doesn't show up real well. I cut my thumb, my pinky, incredibly deep. I had a day where I everything went nuclear. So I'm sorry you melted a plate, but Lord knows, Foxy, I've been there. So we're all rolling this together. So understand that all that was subterfuge. That's one half. That was understanding your opponent's position. The other thing is, many people have what my dad used to call, I know that feeling too, but that's why you have a big burly thesis who helps you keep you keeps you safe from all threats, foreign and dyslexic, foreign and domestic. No, the dyslexic is part of the song and dance I get to deal with. A little bit of ADHD, apparently. Yay, like anyone who's seen the show doesn't suspect something like that. But bodies don't lie. And one thing you will find, many of the people I deal with are survivors. They're survivors of violence, either externally inflicted, self-inflicted, or both. And one thing, all threats, foreign and dyslexic. Yep, I'm glad you like that, Foxy. One thing that people, I count myself in those numbers. I am intimately acquainted with violence and reading intent. Chris should have realized that was coming, because in body language, and one thing people say is men don't communicate. No, many men don't communicate verbally. There is a whole nother language of nonverbal communication by many men. And great point. And oh god, such good points. And then different cultures have different men. I teach something when I'm talking about personal defense. One thing I set the precedent is I talk with my hands. This is both it's both a process that literally helps me talk, and it gives me a tactical advantage because I'm constantly measuring my range between two people, especially if we're having a discussion. So oftentimes, reflexively, you'll see this motion from me. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. I want to understand. Hands up, palms out is a very submissive body language. I don't want trouble. This, I want trouble. I don't want trouble. But this also gives you remarkable coverage. So I think that's something that needs. The other thing I want to get into it. There's some great stuff. Yes, a lot of those micro expressions are beyond your control. The flash of disgust that people will get, the liar's smirk. There's a specific smirk that happens. A lot of self-soothing methods. When we talk about physical chess, people describe fencing, classical fencing, as collegiate, as physical chess. A lot of that is reading the tiny moves, and you can't do it consciously. You have to train so that you do it unconsciously. Have I ever seen? Oh, Cindy Cap. Oh, Cindy Cap. I love Lie to Me because Lie to Me helped me understand how I was doing what I was doing, and it actually. But through Lie to Me, I was able to get the language to explain to people that the way I could tell stuff wasn't. There were certain people who were really convinced that I was heavily psychic. And I am not a heavily psychic individual. I have a good gut, but the vast majority of that good gut comes from a mix of experience and pattern recognition. But Lie to Me taught me the phrasing, and it got me, and I cannot remember the real gentleman that Lightman is based on, but I can't remember his name. That is part of my mental deficiency. I'm terrible with names, but I've read several of his books. I regularly brush up on face reading so that I can process that sort of thing. But body language is a lot louder, and it's all interwoven. And see, that's anybody who's survived or dealt with animals. Your body language will come in. I will tell you, if you're in a bad mood and you're working with special needs folks, they will know the second you cross that threshold. They may not be able to verbalize, but they can tell if you're in a bad mood. It's really interesting. It's something I observed a lot. So understanding that and being now looking tactically at that, because this is when you have a big altercation, it's good as a mental exercise to use it as a tactical simulation. Think why. Chris Rock was at certain disadvantages. He's got spotlight shining on him. So his visibility is limited. I train people when they fence, rotate your opponent so that the sun is in their eyes. I do it unconsciously all the time. I don't have to think about it. It's something I catch flack for from some of my longer term students because it's funny. Hey, Joe, put the link to the game in the comments. It should go through, and if it doesn't, I will see if I can make sure it goes through. Because Joe Bachman, my boy Joe, amazing guy. He's making, amongst other things, dear friend and student. He's a much better fencer than he lets people know. He has been making apps, and he's made apps for some construction stuff. He's made apps for Big Stompy Robots and some RPG generator apps. I have plans with Joe. Don't you worry. There's great stuff coming. So be sure to put your stuff. But yes, thank you for dropping by, Joe. I'll try to catch you in the green room if I can. But that's half of it. And that's important. The other half is something that many people do not acknowledge the reality of violence as a outcome. My dad would say they walk around life with the Crest Invisible Shield. There's a toothpaste company called Crest, and they used to have an ad where somebody brushed their teeth and their teeth are clean, and it's like having a shield that's invisible and it protects you. And there are people, especially in computer, cybernetically connected internet culture, who are not used to the possibility of a physical reaction to verbal expression. The keyboard commandos, oh, fight you. They don't actually, the vast majority don't actually want a physical altercation, but they want to puff up and yell and get in people's faces and be demeaning. But it tends to fade out when there isn't a screen between people. In Chris Rock's case, he felt that he was safe. And he should feel safe. A comedian should feel safe on stage. Anyone should feel safe. However, there is the reality that you still have to read your audience and you still have to understand that what you say can be taken poorly. So if you say something offensively on purpose, you have to be prepared to expect certain ramifications. That is something people go through in life. A lot of people, and it's not usually the people I work with, because by the time people get to me, usually in life, they have found that they aren't, they don't have that illusion of safety. And I know that sounds terrible. How can you live like that? You do. It's called situational awareness. That is the nicest. And if you keep it at a situational awareness level, you'll find that, and yes, I'm going to put that right there because that's just high quality comment from Cindy Kep, that if people can't reach you, they can't hit you. Now they might be able to shoot you, but knowing that range and being aware that anyone within that range has that capacity. And that's part of what I teach. Oh, absolutely. Sometimes life doesn't give you the choice. And my goal, I know, God, if I could wave a magic wand and have people stop hurting each other, for me, a certain type of heaven would be a world where the vast majority of my skill set is totally and completely useless. It may be my greatest fear to be useless, because that's how I assign personal value to myself, not anybody else. It's not fair, but the idea for me is I would love a world where everyone is safe and they never have to worry about that. However, because it's not, I have to teach folks to understand that. And it's being the bearer of bad news. Because I would love to be able to say, hey, everything's okay. Nothing bad's going to happen. And bad stuff can happen. And part of what I teach, I teach fencing for a myriad of reasons, so that you can exercise and be the hero you want to be. It's good for your confidence. It's good for your health. It's good for just clearing out the stress, but it also makes you aware of certain things practically. And that people say you're paranoid. And the trick, I will say this, there's a quote, it's by a very talented author by the name of Laurel K. Hamilton. If you can stomach incredibly racy content, and the comment, one of the comments from one of her books was said by a woman by the name of Nita Blake, the character, paranoia is another word for longevity. Now, the trick is to be, and as when it crosses into paranoia, it's negative. You are investing more energy than what you get back. So the goal is to be situationally aware, but not overly taxing. And hi, Johnny. And that's the thing. There's a difference. As long as it's not negatively impacting you too much. Now, I operate on a different level because I rarely go out without my son. My son is 13 years old. He is 4 inches taller than me. He has the mental reasoning of about a 9-year-old, 9 to 10-year-old. He's 13 in about a 15 to 18-year-old's body. Oh, yeah, 15-year-old's body. There's a lot going there. So I have to be extra vigilant for things that, because he's autistic, can set him off. It's different. And you have to find what's your my primary means of defense is avoidance. It is not cowardice. Cowardice to me is failure to engage when it's your duty to do so. If you have the capacity and the duty to engage something that may be scary or dangerous because it's the right honorable thing to do, and you don't, that is cowardice. We've all been there. But I also, the best fight is the one that never happens. I mean, I've talked people out of shooting me. I've had to provide threat of reciprocal damage to prevent people from shooting me at different points in my life. I've had to become a hard enough target with enough of a reputation that people stopped trying to harm me at points in my life. And it's not, in many times it wasn't about winning, because sometimes you can't, but it's losing in such a way that's so costly they don't want to come back. But all that comes down from realizing threats are real and they're present. And you have to constantly be calmly assessing. And if you do it right, it's like any other skill. It becomes almost body language. Not body language, reflex. Pop, 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 pop. So, if you get really good at it, your brain, you'll get a gut feeling that says, hey, you don't need to be here. Now, some of that, I do attribute some spiritual aspects to it. I pray a lot. I try to listen to God. And at the risk of sounding like a wackadoo, sometimes you get that nudge on the back of your mind, like something is wrong. You don't want to be here. The origin of which I would rather credit to the boss than anything I'm doing. And it may be just the skill set that the boss has endowed me with. That might be how it works. And I try to use terms like that to not be offensive to folks, but it's real. And whenever you see an altercation, how could it have been prevented? One, obviously, Chris Rock could have not made the joke. Will Smith could have elected not to engage in a physical response. I do believe there was a lot of emotion behind it, and a lot of personal history came out at that moment, combined with the kind of role he's been acting in. When you method act, it infects you. That's what killed Heath Ledger, largely. There's some debate, but yes, right here, creepy jeebies, heebie-jeebies, creepy jeebies, the Giblays. To old, strong, bad fans, the Giblays is a term that should be known. And I'm sorry, it's been going from 70 to 32 and back where I live. So, like, the mold, pressure, everything, my allergies are going nuts. But, so I'll probably be drinking a little more frequently than I have been lately. And to the folks who worry, I have my granola bars right here in case my blood sugars get funky. But thank you so much for being that caring of a chat, by the way. Understand that and listen to that gut. I make the joke often that, I may be white, but I'm not horror movie white guy white, you know? Uh the well, yep, hydration is good. Hydration is always good. You want to maintain your blood sugars and your hydration and be aware. That's part of situational awareness. Situational awareness starts internal. How am I thinking? Am I thinking about what's going on around me? Am I feeling? Am I angry? Because if you're angry, you're projecting it probably. How are all the people around me? Have I taken care of myself? When I say I believe in building people from the ground up, when I'm talking fencing, I usually refer to stance. We're not moving. We're not holding a sword. I want to see how you stand. You're not wrong. But you know what? In most of those movies, there's my guy. And it's funny because you can spot him. It usually starts off something like he's in a pickup truck. And like once in a while they'll subvert the standards and have something bad to him. But that's M. Night Shyamalan kind of silly. But there's a guy at the beginning of almost every horror movie who's in the pickup truck. And you've got all the teens, and you can see them. The jock teen, the hot bimbo, the smart chick, and the quasi-stoner. They may have a dog. Yes, I named off the paragon of group dynamics that is Scooby-Doo. But they're coming down one way, and there's one guy in the truck. He's got his dog. He's in an old pickup truck. He's like, "I'm going them woods. Now, Loup Garou, he come for you." Now, I've been saying stuff like that for almost as long as I can remember. And the more I've applied that logic, I've also, there is another saying. Good choices come from experience. Experience comes from bad choices, I made mistakes, sir, and I learned from them. My first word was hot. My mom would hold up the stove, and she'd hold her hand and she'd say hot. And being a little kid, very, very little, I touched the stove, I lightly burned my finger. I went hot, and I understood fundamentally language and what hot was. And I told everybody as a little kid, apparently, hot, and I pointed at the stove. And then I learned if I see somebody burn themselves, I'm not going to reach into that fire. A lot of it, because Foxy says, feelings are the hardest part for me to recognize. Are you talking in other people, what they're feeling, how they're expressing themselves, or are you talking in yourself? Because how you approach that's two different ways. When you're trying to approach things, I like to play a game. I have little games I play with myself to keep my mind sharp, no matter where I am. These games include things like what's wrong with this picture, and it's to the point where that has become I see. So you need to get to know yourself and know why. That's like getting to know anybody else. You have to pay attention. And you have to let yourself listen to yourself. Listen to if you have an internal dialogue, listen to that. If the vibes you get from things, what makes you feel what way? Ask yourself these questions. Sometimes you have to write it down. Sometimes you just talk to yourself. I'm very much a verbal tactile. So I'll talk to myself when I'm fixing something or whatever, and I have to fidget with something to think. I have to have the ability to have my hands do something. But learning to say what's wrong with this picture, especially if you feel it's like something is up. You are so right on this. The Geico commercial with the "let's go hide in the shed behind the chainsaws." And there are stories I have that aren't quite appropriate for this channel and not quite appropriate for this content. but involve a great many instances of me with certain friends of mine going, "Are you stupid? I love you. I love you. I love you." Look, eyes, eyes. Big scary thing. The rest of the possible world. Why are you picking conflicts? And most times it's because of that crest invisible shield feeling. It's the sensation that that can't happen to me. Or I'm a big guy, I can handle it. Buddy, 45 doesn't care if you're a big guy. You know, a large animal may or may not care if you're a big guy. There's so many force multipliers out there in the very mundane world that however big you are sometimes just doesn't matter. Sometimes mono e mono, the little guy's not going to win without cheating or grotesque escalation in violence. Oh God, oh Johnny, from your words to from your lips to God's ears, stupid plus drunk. See you later. I'm out. My only thing that has kept me in many situations is I tend to care more for people than perhaps I should. And that has put me in these situations where, why am I still here? Because if I don't, they'll end up dead. And they need somebody. So, that drip, drip, drip that never stops gets going on. They can be entertaining if you're in a safe place. And, but they also are big tactical liability. So you have to process these things. And this is why I watch footage sometimes when the news happens and there's an altercation where you see the security camera. I'll watch the thing and then I'll stop, try to zoom in and watch for the tells. Because one thing, bad guys aren't usually taught to be bad. Bad guys. Totally justifiable. They don't move right. They don't sound right. They don't think that way. I always maintain distance. Well, that's very primal because when someone is intoxicated, to our like lizard brains, like the mammals that survived the eon days, the same part of us that if you go like this at a baby will make it scream, knows they're not well. And it triggers the same response as somebody who's sick. It's I need to give my distance because I don't want whatever they're about. And that's a very since they create gunpowder, strength feats became cranes and forklifts jobs. Now I will put a caveat on that because I agree largely, but you have to, when you're assessing, don't get too comfortable because the amount of force and damage a large individual can do to someone who thinks they can't is staggering. And that's partially why I know, getting back to the origin of the slap, wasn't about damaging him. The slap was not about hurting Chris Rock at any point. It wasn't, I'm going to him up. No. It was about reasserting social dominance. It was a dismissive, though violent gesture to put him back in his place. That was what's I try not to swear, but it's a B slap, okay? 5-letter word. I try not to swear if I can, especially on this channel because there's so few live streams that I can watch with my son. I try to make sure my show is likely to be something you're safe, even though it's not geared for children because of YouTube's algorithmic wibbly wobbly. But yes, many people are that way. Um, having looked at that, um, I think part of it was a reach adjustment, largely because you'll find that sort of miscalibration, people who aren't used to engaging people much smaller than them. They tend to overcompensate to be able to reach. But the gesture was a pop. It was bam, and then the walk away told it all. The walk away, yes, female dog. So I don't think it was particularly well delivered, but I do believe it was more intended for as a go. We're primates, folks. We are all primates. And that was you were stepping up. You have gone beyond the place of your authority or your place to act, and everyone, and I think it was a moment of desperation where so many people have given Will Smith stuff. He was carrying a lot of latent anger, and that was poked deliberately. I don't drink much. My bloodline is full of alcoholics, and I've seen the damage it can do, so I choose not to drink much. I will tell you, I've never had a drink of alcohol. This is not me saying I'm better than people. Look, I don't drink. I am pure. Absolutely not. I have a genetic history of alcoholism. Alcoholism is a genetic trait. It is a disorder that can be tracked through families, through bloodlines, through DNA. Therefore, I have always treated it like an allergy. It is damaging to body and soul for people of my genetics, so I don't engage in it. And but I don't. If you are doing the sober thing after you weren't, all I care about right now is that you're doing the sober thing. And I will say this, if you're ever doing the sober thing, a lot of people are now more. It's a side effect of the pandemic that's upsetting a lot of people because it's a major financial loss and stuff. I don't care. Um, if you're being sober, I support you. And anybody who tries to sabotage that, uh, if you got to cut them out of your life, I won't blame you a bit. Because if anything, it's a bare minimum, it's a tactical liability, folks. I have other reasons, a lot of what I do, and I didn't take up the sword to get strong and powerful. I took up the sword to gain control. I was already fairly strong at that point in my life, proportionately, and I had a lot of anger. And strong is dangerous because you could accidentally make a mistake. Strong and angry is worse, but there's nothing worse than somebody who's angry and scared. And at points in my life, I was stronger than I should be for my size, angry, and I was scared. And that's a deadly combination. People get dead when they mess with that. And I did not want to cross into that realm. I did not want to be able to cross into that realm. So I worked very hard to harness that and take what energies I have and frustrations and try to turn them into something positive where I can build up others, or I can be creative, or I can vent it in a healthy way. Now, ironically, I have been nerfed biologically enough that it would take a lot for me to be a problem, but I'm okay with that too. I'm going to tell you, it ain't worth it. It just isn't worth it. And if you hear me slip into an ain't, I'm very that's a bad sign that I'm very passionate on the subject. Yeah, they do that. I've been that. Yeah. Uh, so there's a whole lot going on, and there'll be ramifications. And realistically, if you hit somebody, there should be ramifications. That's part. But I do also believe that consequences breed civility. And way earlier on, when people were talking about the internet and especially the pandemic further isolating us, has made it so easy to not think. And obviously, I don't want to say something hurtful to someone because I don't want to hurt somebody. But I don't. But I also understand that if you say something hurtful, you will catch a punch. I was a little dude with a big mouth. Now, in my case, it was more they were punching me anyway, so I might as well mess with their heads while I was going down. But that was, dumb kid stuff. And I'm not a dumb kid anymore. I'm a gimpy old man. And yes, that's a horrible derogatory term, but it was used against me, so I made it my own. And yeah, you find folks, family's family. But I also understand that if you have to walk away from family for a time or for life because of your safety or sanity, then you have to do that. And it's a very hard thing to do, but sometimes you have to walk that path. And like with any very hard things, it has its pros, it has its cons. And it's all about assessment, guys. Um, yeah. But I will say this, if you have the opportunity to be that family to somebody, one of my guiding principles is the Uncle Iroh clause. If you don't have an Uncle Iroh in your life, then you have no choice but to become the Uncle Iroh in your life and be that for somebody else, if possible. It's something I sort of aspire to. And I have rules. I have a lot of rules, and part of that whole rule set is being who I wish I knew. You know what I mean? So, like, I try to be upbeat because I know a lot of people can only be downbeat. I try to be supportive because I know a lot of people will only celebrate their wins, or they'll help you, but only as much as they're still higher up or equal. They don't want you to transcend them. And I've known trainers like that. And I find that philosophy appalling. So what I'm trying to do, and what I'm trying to say, Philip, what this is, you need to know who you are, and you need to be aware of your surroundings and your internal. When I talk about the concentric circles, it starts with what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and that's both emotionally and physically. Are you in pain? Are you tired? Are you thirsty, etc.? Because that ties into your emotional state, and vice versa. I'm diabetic. That means if I'm scared or angered, that burns through my blood sugar real fast. Adrenaline and blood sugar stability are mortal enemies. So I have to be aware of that. And then it's, what's touching my body, what I can reach, what an object I can reach. This has this much longer reach than my hand, than any projectiles I have and any projectiles they have. And you have to think in these concentric circles. So I think very much like the perfect opposite of Zorro from the Mask of Zorro. Very much a mutant of Maslow's hierarchy. Because especially when you're trained to survive, you have everything is a credit or a liability, and you have to balance what it is. Being scared can be a credit if you know how to use being scared. There's a type of shock after you've been through too much that you can either turn into a mindless rage and lose, or you can turn into a type of hypervigilance that will let you identify threats and respond much faster than you normally could. Um, Pain can be a detriment or a motivator. Uh, One thing I'm a big fan of was I talk about pain a lot because we are in a culture that fears pain, almost above all else. Uh, and I was brought up that pain is good. It's not pleasant, but it is good because pain tells you things. There have been points in my life where I've had so much going on, where everything's gone wrong, or I'm in a car wreck, or I'm almost unconscious because of a beating, or things like that. Bad juju stuff. And that's juju as a negative mojo, not anything relating to anybody. Don't take speech minutes. But pain can let you know you're alive. And it can be a mind clear thing. When nothing makes sense, the pain sometimes it lets you know if you're hurt. It lets you know where you're hurt. It lets you know boundaries. Uh, it lets you know your limitations. And after a while, you learn the difference between necessary pain that I would call good pain, the soreness of exercise versus the soreness of overexertion. Overexertion. I know if I do I used to be a runner, believe it or not, and I would know if my legs felt like this, I'm at a good point in the run, and I know I have this much time. If it would hurt, uh, worse than that, or it's more fiery, knowing your body is so important. And I'm not saying go out and hurt yourself to find out. That would be stupid. But I'm saying understanding what your body is telling you and listening to it. And the vast majority of time, I will tell you, if what you are doing is hurting you, stop doing it. It pain helps you ID boundaries. Now, I understand that. And so the problem is, like all things, pain can become addictive in some people. I've known people who were cutters because the pain cleared their mind, or other such types of self mutilation, and they had to come to terms with that. So ironically, a double edged sword. The point is awareness and calibration of ideas. I love the word calibration because moderation and calibration are things that get used uh, interchangeably sometimes, and they're really not. Calibration is being able to decide how strong or how hard you do something or something is. You know what? I will stop my brakes anytime somebody says something like this. Absolutely. Safe words are very important. For example, I picked it up from the SCA. I train my students, and if they don't respond, they don't play. If somebody says hold or stop, everything stops. You never goof around with it. You never play with it. The tips are down. Everything you do what you need to get safe, and all combat, all silliness stops till everything's recalibrated. That logic goes to any activity where pain and physical damage can be. And it's like, oh, Nick, you're not judging, because I'm not going to judge you for what you do. It consensually, you know, in your own private scenario, that's on you, you know. That's why it's adults can consent. If you're not an adult or you're not a human, you can't consent. Consent is vital. But consent is vital in things like maybe people don't like tickling, people don't like pranks, people don't like I'm sorry you had to go down that road, thesis. But I'm impressed with the courage it takes to talk about it, and I respect it. And I'm sorry you had to deal with other abuse. I understand that too. It becomes a power consent thing, and that's emotional abuse. That's touching. That's you know what? I can't make somebody turn off the music in a situation, if it's too loud or whatever. But I can remove myself, and I should be allowed to. You know, uh, consent is so important, and it's so undervalued in our culture and in our communities. We don't talk about it early enough. We don't build it, and I think a lot of it is because consent can be detrimental to obedience, and so many institutions that we engage in, types of employment, types of education, require obedience, and that's a very slippery thing. I'm glad it was the last. uh, but that's what we start getting about, because when you learn what we do, when you learn how to sword fight, when you learn any martial art, you're building physical knowledge. And see, I hate that physical education has been diluted. People don't talk about why they're doing things; they just tell to do do them. Uh, Wonderful. I understand that too. If I'd known about consent as a kid, I probably would be fine with tickling. Yeah, that. Yeah, if adults respected consent of children, you'd probably be fine too. Now, I've known many people who've had consent issues, and I've had to adjust some of them at points in my life. Uh, Now, anybody can make a mistake, but there are lines, and we'll leave it there, because if you could hear the slight growl in my voice, that's a little heavy, and it's not that I'm not. It's just that right now there's not much I can do about it. So I'm proud of who you've become, despite the issues you guys have had. Because the people I talk to here are very fine people. The girlfriends who were physically emotional, the last one messed me up for quite a time. Foxy pulled me from a very dark place, and I think that's what happens when you find the right people, either romantically or platonically or educationally, inspirationally, spiritually. And that's what I want. And that's what this group is all about. We're about pulling people out of the dark. Uh, and that's what I want to be about. That's glorious. Snort. I dragged him out of the dark and blinded him with all my hippie colors. I love that. That's great. Um, whew. But uh, to pull it all the way back around, consent requires both parties being aware and understanding how you're feeling internally, to go, this feels wrong, and to say, this feels wrong, so that the other party can say, oh, shoot, I'm sorry, in a proper situation. And I know a lot of people will throw, safe words as a joke. And I always take it seriously because it's a serious thing. Aw, y'all are cute. And I dig that. Um, But I think we can learn and use what we're doing to pay attention. And that's what I think will help. Very soon, guys, we're almost to the point where the weather will be stable. And I know I've been kind of a sissy. I used to hold practices bundled up in 20 below. And part of the problem is with the way my nerves work, I'm very sensitive to temperature change. Being too hot or heaven help me, too cold is radically not good painful. Isn't it cool? Now, see, the other thing is once you have somebody in your corner, a significant other or others, I have friends who are polymorphs, and they may even be, platonic life mates, looking at Jay and Silent Bob. You can explore who you are and be comfortable who you are without necessarily falling into roles that you feel you have to fill. You get to be you. And that's a beautiful thing. And you get to find out more about who the you are is. For years and years and years, I would wear this is a much more niche clothes than I normally do, and I have laundry, and so I don't have a lot of Hawaiian stuff. Hence, I have to wear my headgear to stay on brand. But I wasn't comfortable wearing bright colors because it made me more noticeable, and I'd far rather gray man everywhere. But it was detrimental to me, and I wasn't being me. I liked the stuff, but I couldn't wear it. In the battle days. Now, before that, yeah. And I've always been a little flamboyant in my clothing, and I love to be. Now, like, I'll wear whatever makes me happy or I think will make the people around me happy. I like bright colors. I'm easy to find. But then there are days where it's like, no, I kind of want to just be a walking bush. It comes from spending too much time in the woods, which I had a lovely conversation with Nita Lanning over at Ragin 2, the other network I'm a part of. You got to find out who you are, and then when you figure out who you are, and that's one of the nice things about middle age. I know who I am. I know what I'm about, and that can't really be taken from me. I could be less popular. I may lose a venue. I may lose attention, but I'm not going to change who and what I'm about because I've spent a lot of time trying to be better. I get that. You want to be seen, and you should be seen. You should be comfortable being seen. You should be comfortable in your body as much as you can. And this is me being a total hypocrite because I am overweight and I'm very uncomfortable with it. But I still rock the bright Hawaiian shirts anyway. But you should feel comfortable in your body. And that's something, like I said, I'm working on. You should feel comfortable being seen like, yep, this is me. Full metal, alchemy over here. But, oh, by the way, still using Booby the Squeezy Square. To anyone who was wondering, Booby's still right here. Now, I'm going to get ready at the hour when I'm gonna cut it at the hour, but I want to run a short video advertising some of the shows that are on the Rising Tide Broadcast Network, which this show and channel are part of. I'm also a member of something called the Ragin 2 Network that I do the morning show with Luke Stone on Thursdays. And that's fine too. I'm not, okay, I'm going to have to delay what I was saying for a second. I'm not saying you need to be skinny. I would never say anybody needs to be skinny and tiny, even if they formerly were. You need to be happy and as healthy as you can be comfortably. And there's no shame wherever you fall in that. And if you're in progress, there's no, the people who get mad at the fat guy at the gym, just like, oh, it's nails on the chalkboard. It's like, don't kick somebody for trying to improve themselves. Or you're happy. I envy the people who are happy. Not necessarily the people who are the prettiest. I kind of envy the people who are happy. That's who, because it's really cool. So I respect that. And yeah. So we're at the hour mark. I want to remind you guys, hey, you know what? I didn't tell you guys this whole time to please like, share, and subscribe. But please, if what I'm doing has any value, hit that like button. I have to fight really hard on YouTube because they consider this, because of the topics and the swords and stuff, it's a weapons channel. And I really fight a lot of issues with the algorithms and stuff. And that's not what I'm about, but it's very difficult to explain that. So your likes and shares are vital to me being able to help uplift some folks. And you know what? If I can sell a book or two in the process, they're available through Amazon, I'm still doing good. And if I can help some other folks, that's still good. So what I'm going to say, guys, I'm going to do my little sign out, and I'm going to run a brief video, and then I'm going to call it, is, folks, be good to yourselves. All right? Go! Yeah, that's okay. That is okay. Here's what you missed. We did a tactical breakdown on the slap. It turned into a philosophical discussion on the merits of being situationally and tactically aware. And it was a good video. I hope you can catch it out in the rerun. And it hit me in the Patreon, because Off in the Woods is a Patreon member. And guys, whenever you watch these shows, turn on the commentary, because I can't always get through all of them. But I'm gonna say, guys, and I'm sorry because I'm literally going out the door. I'm gonna have a little bit of a snack, get my pail on, but keep your guard up, do your drills, be kind to yourselves and each other, and as always, folks, thank you for supporting your local sword master. I'm gonna try to run this little ad for the Rising Tide Broadcast Network, and then I'm gonna call it a night. So thank you for your time and attention.
Welcome to the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. Here you will find a variety of shows which cover a wide array of interests, from comics to creativity, mysteries to mixology, and science to history. There's something for all interests at the Rising Tide. There are shows every day of the week, daytime and nighttime. So take a look at our schedule and see what appeals to you. If you're interested in comics, both independent and mainstream, check out Comics Chaos and Sass, or Comic Book Spectrum, or from the desk of a small press publisher. If you want encouragement and advice on furthering your creativity, we have Creative as Hail and Tidbits and Scribbles. If you enjoy mysteries and conspiracy theories, we have the Truth Mongers. If you're into interviews with up-and-coming talents, there is a TED Talks made just for you, as well as clever title pending. If you're into classic combat sports, there's the Historical Fencing Guild. And if you want to know what it's like to hang out with convention regulars, we have Stupid O'Clock and Last Man Standing. If you want witty repartee and fast-paced fun, check out Nevermind the Furthermore. If the science of rocketry and spaceflight is your thing, we have Armchair Rocket Science. But that's by no means all the Rising Tide has to offer. New shows will be added as they develop, so stay tuned. All Rising Tide shows share a spirit of mutual cooperation, under the philosophy that a rising tide raises all ships. Lightly ruled over by our comic ringmaster of mayhem, Brian K. Morris, we support and promote each other's works. What helps one of us to greater success helps all of us achieve even more successes. So look at the schedule, check out the shows, and we're sure that you will want to come back for more.
Well, that worked pretty well for that might be my first time running a bit, guys. Have a wonderful night. Double check the comments real quick. And yeah, that was very strange background music. I didn't make the video. I'm just trying to support some good folks. Happy April Fool's Day. Hope you guys have stayed safe.